Hey everyone, this is Minutia Minute, and welcome to Wednestopia, the day comic books come out, and the day I give you my impressions of the books that I picked up, in this case for today, March 12th. This week is actually a pretty big week for me. I have 7 books to review for you guys. I don't really like doing more than 5 books at a time because my brain does get a little bit numb, my tongue gets a little bit tied, my mouth lips go a little bit numb. It's just a little too much all at once. So I am going to break today's haul into 2 videos. Today you're going to get the first 4 books that I read this week, and then tomorrow or possibly the day after I'll have the remaining 3. These aren't in any particular order, they're just kind of in the order that I read them. So without more explaining, let's get into today's reviews. The first book I want to talk to you guys about is Hawkeye. This is going to be a very quick review because I didn't actually read the entire thing. I read about 5 pages and then I just quit reading, which is super disappointing. You know, Hawkeye has historically been one of my favorite titles, one of the only titles I get from Marvel, and when I was playing catch-up, it was starting to grate on me a little bit, and Sleepy Reader talked about this in his review of issue, it would have been 16 now, or I guess it would have been 15, but it was the 16th issue. And he sort of talked about how we're kind of on the same story we were on issue 1, but it keeps getting sidetracked, and there are all these different digressions. Now, I like the idea that Matt Fraction is sort of taking every version of Hawkeye, you know, whether it's a dog, whether it's a girl, whether it's Cliff Barton, and they're all, you know, it's a title about Hawkeye, the superhero, which isn't necessarily just a title about Cliff Barton. But then we get all of these digressions, and it gets to the point where it just is starting to feel really excessive, and never more so than with Hawkeye number 17, because this is basically a Christmas story. And this is what happens when a book falls behind, and editorially you just have to start throwing books out left and right. This is a book where basically it's Hawkeye watching a cartoon, and the artist is really cartoony, and it's basically these winter superheroes, and at the very end of the book, Cliff Barton falls asleep, and all the people he's watching cartoons with go to bed or whatever. Like, that's literally all that happens. I can't begin to tell you how good the sort of cartoon that we actually get in this book is, because I didn't read it. I got a page in, and then I saw it started digressing, and then I started flipping through the book, and I realized, oh, there's literally no actual Hawkeye comic book in this comic book. It's just this Christmas time digression. And the thing that makes it even funnier is if you look at the editor's note at the back, it's like, oh, isn't it funny that we're doing this, you know, Christmas issue in February? But of course it's not February, it's March. So like this book is obviously, you know, delayed and then delayed again. And so now we're getting it at just a pointless time. They should have just dropped it or saved it for next Christmas or something. Really not happy about this. I'm not dropping Hawkeye. I'll be getting issues 18, 19, and 20. It looks like we're going to finally continue on with the story at hand, and they show those covers and what those are going to look like. But if I had flipped through the book at the comic book shop, I probably wouldn't have picked it up, to be honest. I would have just left it blank because it's kind of a waste of $3 at this point. So really disappointed in that. Sorry to say. The next book on my list to review today is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 32. This, I believe, is officially wrapping up the Northampton storyline, and another good, solid issue. We finally get Leonardo really kind of rejoining his brethren, and the final resolution of his character after the events of City Fall. Obviously, you know, the scars that are from City Fall will continue, I'm sure, to play out throughout the continuing arcs, but the main sort of resolution has finally come through with Northampton here, and we get, of course, the Falcon character, I can't remember his name, that has found the turtles, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. We find that Alopex is not as much a member of the group as she feels, because they instantly turn on her, and once everyone figures out that it wasn't Alopex's fault that they were found, she's still kind of left on her own because she feels like she can't trust them any more than they can trust her, and so she kind of digresses away from the group, sadly. I'm sure that will be coming back to play again. In the meantime, our turtles are heading back to the city. Like I said, overall, a really good book. Par for the course at this point. I mean, there's nothing really particularly special that stands out. The one thing that kind of disappoints me and I don't want to say disappoints me, but it's just something that has always bugged me about Turtles, is, how do you play off humans meeting the Turtles? It's like, we're in a world where people don't expect Turtles to exist, and yet they do. Or, I mean, Turtles like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles exist. And so for Joe Schmo in Northampton, a.k.a. April O'Neil's parents, when they finally see the Turtles in this issue, there's two ways you can play it out. And, there's the, shock and horror and make some big melodramatic thing out of it, or there's the let's make a joke out of it. And the thing about Turtles is, the only way that really works for them is to make a joke out of it. So you do have that beat in here where it's kind of like, am I dreaming? And Casey's like, yep, you are. And then it's just a joke that kind of glosses over the issue of, this is a completely unbelievable situation for this person. And I find that happens with Turtles a lot. Whenever someone sees them, it always has to be played off as a joke. And it just feels like the same beat over and over and over again over the years. And again, I mean, I don't have an answer. Like, I don't know what they should do instead, but it's something that it kind of makes me roll my eyes at this point because it feels like such a Turtles cliche, It's like the classic, moment in the first movie when Raphael is sort of quasi-exposed because he is chasing after Casey Jones, I think, and he, flips over a taxi cab, and they're like, ah, and then some guy's like, I thought that looked like a big turtle in a trench coat, and they just look at each other and shrug or whatever, just that kind of thing. Like, again, I get it, I don't know how to alleviate it, but I don't love it, and it kind of took me out of the moment in this book, because there is something a bit more down to earth about these Turtles, because it is such a, so character driven, and you really believe in these characters. To have that kind of cliche moment in here kind of took away from the character of April O'Neil's parents. They just kind of just didn't feel quite right. I don't know how else to explain it. I feel like I'm rambling, so I'll stop talking about it. But other than that, it's a good issue. And like I said, we're going back to New York City. Lots of big things to come. Curious to see what's going to happen with our next story arc. Third on my list is Justice League 3000 issue number 4, which obviously I've been saying for a little while now. Justice League 3000 is the Justice League book that you should be getting. It's $2.99, which is the only Justice League book that's $2.99, I'm pretty sure now. And it is a blast to read. It's fun, it's quirky, and it's just completely insane. This is the big issue. So spoilers in advance going in, we do find out what the story is behind the Justice League of 3000 and why they are how they are. We find out the big secret. The first chunk of this book is basically people keep insisting that they're clones, and Terry, who created the new Justice League, are saying, no, they're not clones. Don't you understand the subtlety of what I'm trying to create? And it's this great kind of meta commentary moment for Giffen and Porter and DeMatteis on, hey, that's not what we're trying to do here. So what are they actually trying to do? To be honest, when they said, hey, look, they're not clones, I was wondering, is this some kind of either a parallel universe thing or a time travel thing? Like, how are they going to make this work out? And I kind of like the idea that maybe these actually are our real Justice League, somehow brought back from the dead thousands of years later or something. But of course, none of that really quite added up, and you couldn't really figure out exactly what was going on. Well, here's the deal, and again, spoilers. They tried making clones, and it didn't work. They wouldn't stay stable, blah, 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 blah. So what they started doing was taking human hosts and basically grafting their DNA onto the human hosts. So effectively, every time you have a new Justice League member, you're killing someone else, and their personality and everything that they ever were, they slowly turn into the Justice League of Terry and Terry's choice. So that's why Superman can't fly, and he doesn't have all of Krypton's powers. That's why nobody quite remembers what's going on, because they keep basically grafting their DNA and sticking the memories into these human hosts, essentially. So it makes for a really interesting dynamic, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it at first, but the more I'm thinking about it, even right now in this video, I like it more and more, because it creates this really dark twist, a really kind of black humor element to the Justice League and sort of what they represent now, that could play out in a really interesting way, I think, further on down the line. And it definitely, the characters inside them, the basically the accumulation of all these memories, the perception that Batman is Batman, or whatever it is, even though they know they're not really Batman. Um, all those memories do have a moral compass, and they do understand how wrong that is. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that, I guess, plays out in the long run. While this is a really, really heavy exposition issue, lots and lots of explaining going on. There are some great moments, just sort of those Justice League 3000 silly moments that we've seen so far. We get a little bit of resolution with, or I shouldn't say resolution, but a continuation of what's going on with Locust and Green Lantern, which basically it's really fun because we basically get to see miniature Green Lantern get into a big fight. And I wondered early on, like, why they made instead of give him a Green Lantern ring that's sort of a simulation of the real Green Lantern ring, they give him this weird power cloak. We get the payoff on that in this issue, and it's pretty entertaining. It's a cool sort of twist on a normal Green Lantern fight, because you have the miniature Green Lantern, he's wielding this big cloak, and he's creating these big constructs with the cloak. It makes for a really fun sort of fight. And finally, I won't spoil the big ending, but we do get the addition of a new Justice League member at the end of this book, which should be very, very interesting to see how it plays out. And it makes for an interesting... It'll be fun to see what other Justice League members they can pull out. Now that we know how they create the Justice League, what Justice League members are going to join the team as we continue on in this story. So if you are picking up Justice League 3000, I really do recommend you buy it. It's just fun. If you want a comic book that is exciting, it'll make you laugh, it'll make you, really, it's a page turner in the sense you really don't know what's going to happen next. And it really keeps you guessing. If you want a book like that, this is the book for you. Go check it out. My last review for this video, and you knew this one was coming, is Batman issue number 29. Now, I really don't want to spoil this book. I really, there's only so much I can say because it's the big climactic ending of the middle part of year 0, or 0 year, excuse me. Everyone that I know has been a little bit lackluster on this arc. Hasn't been Scott Snyder's strongest work. However, this particular issue I found incredibly enjoyable. Really, really good. Intense, fun, and then ends on a real cliffhanger. My favorite moment in this book is towards the beginning when we get a vehicle that is quite possibly more ridiculous than the monster truck that he had in the cult, okay? There is a vehicle that is more ridiculous than Batman's monster truck, and we get that in this issue. We get some great callbacks in here to past issues, particularly Frank Miller's Batman, where, of course, the infamous line, "I'm the goddamn Batman," except in here it's kind of played with a twist. Right after that, Scott Snyder gives us a sly look at Batman Begins, and explaining how that vehicle, this new vehicle, was already black. And then we get into the action. We get the big conclusion with Dr. Death. We see kind of what happens to him. We get some really interesting character pieces with Dr. Death and kind of what happened to his son, which is really interesting. It took a little while for me to kind of bring back some of that past story, since that feels like it's been a while, especially since we're 2 months since we had the last issue of 0 year. And as everything comes to its big dramatic conclusion in this, it really leaves you primed for the final 4 issues. I do still wonder, did this 0 year have to be a year? Or is it just a title that begs them to make it a year-long thing? I think that if this had been maybe like 8 or 9 issues total, that would have still maybe been better, because, things really felt like they were dragging on for a while. I'm really curious to see how things play out in these final 4 issues, but I would imagine based on the way they leave things with this big conclusion, it's going to be a big climactic set of 4 issues as we run towards the end of this arc. Someone told me recently that there's actually going to be even more 0 year. I hope that's not the case. I just have to say that straight up. Like, I am enjoying this well enough, especially right now. No matter how good these next 4 issues are, let's get back to Batman 5 years later in the current continuity of the New 52. So that's it for this episode of Wednestopia. I hope you enjoyed. Of course, there are 3 more books as yet that I haven't discussed. I will be back shortly to discuss those, so tune in soon and hear my thoughts on Manifest Destiny, FBP, and Star Wars, the ongoing series from Dark Horse. Until then, I'll talk to you guys soon.